Now's right about the time the sun shines directly in my eyes, my dog starts barking. So I think that's our cue to get started. So welcome everyone to our live webinar, Optimizing Bind with Micetro. I'm Lauren Malhoit. I'm the Director of Technical Content at Men&Mice, but I will be your moderator today. In just a few moments, I'll introduce Eddie and April, who will be our speakers, giving you the great content today. But before I do, I just have to go over just a couple of things over the next 1 or 2 minutes, I promise, then I'll turn it over to them. First of all, please feel free to ask questions anytime via the Q&A panel. So we'll be here to answer your questions either in the Q&A panel, or we'll go ahead and interrupt Eddie and April and ask them the questions live. We will do a Q&A session later as well after they're done, but don't hesitate to throw those in there anytime. All right, so if you're not familiar with Bind or Micetro or one or the other, here's just a quick introduction. So Bind is developed by ISC. It's a very flexible, full-featured open source DNS solution. It is the oldest DNS solution out there and therefore the most familiar to most network engineers. Micetro, on the other side, by Men&Mice, is a sustainable DDI management overlay solution. So it allows enterprise IT teams to enjoy the benefits and the security of viewing and controlling their entire multi-vendor DDI environment all from one place, whether that be the GUI or the APIs or any combination there between. So with us today are Eddie Winstead from ISC and April Averett from Men&Mice. Eddie, how are you doing today? Will you tell us a little bit about your role with ISC?
Sure, I'm doing great today. I hope you are. I have a lot of hats at ISC, and I've worked a lot with Men&Mice over my time at ISC because Men&Mice is the training partner of ISC. So we've developed a lot of training courses together, like DNS protocol, IPv6, et cetera, DHCP, KIA, and we've taught some of those classes together. Another one of my hats is I am pretty much the consultant at ISC. So whenever we have a customer that needs some consulting, prior to COVID, I was the person that went around and did that. Now I do it, from this room. Yeah, and so I've just reached my 11-year anniversary at ISC, so I've been there quite a while. I've been doing DNS and DHCP things for about 3 decades now, so very familiar. Interestingly, most of my experience is in ISP and enterprise environments, but mostly with just straight up bind ISC DHCP or KIA involved, right? So that's why I'm interested today. I get to ask questions about what would something that sort of wraps around that look like. And yeah, so I think that's it for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're the man to have on this webinar, Eddie. Thanks so much for doing this with us. And let's do the same thing with April. April, tell us a little bit about your role at Men&Mice.
Well, I work in the customer care team, which is a technical team. We do the tech support. We also do professional services and assist with demos and things like that. We've got a great group of technical technically knowledgeable people on our team. We kind of pride ourselves on trying to stay ahead of the protocols. So we're constantly researching and things like that too, and helping the prod team and dev team to implement management of those protocols in the tool. So we also wear a lot of hats. As far as my role, I'm the director of the tech team and also principal engineer. So I'm still wearing a techie hat on that too. And I've been with Men&Mice for about coming up on 2 years. And before that, I was a longtime customer of the tool. So for 13 years, I hired Men&Mice as my vendor. And I've been in the tech world for a very long time as well. I don't want to say how long, but I've worked in IT most of the time. I started as a network administrator, server admin, and then I started managing DDI and engineering and architecting that for a large corporation about 15 years ago now. So I've been focused solely on that part of the network since then. And I came to Men&Mice because I love the tool, and I think everybody should have it, personally.
That's why I love that you're here, April. You could give both sides, and people can trust what you're saying because you had to actually use it in the real world. So we appreciate that. So the format of this webinar will, as Addie said, be Addie kind of interviewing April as she takes us through the tool. So April, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you would take that over so that we can see Micetro, that would be great.
Sure. Let me try that again. You had to wait for you to unshare. Okay.
We'll figure this out yet.
What are you guys seeing there?
I see your login screen to Micetro.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So we actually have two interfaces at the moment. So this is our web interface, and we also have a thick client that has it has some of the management capabilities. So I'll show you a little bit of both as we go through this, because we are moving all of our capabilities to the web, but currently the server management, the deeper level management, some of the logging is still in the console. So I'll kind of be hopping around between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question is, so if I have obviously I have bind servers running in my network. How do I get Micetro installed? Like, how do we get to this point, right? You mentioned like there's a server portion as well, and what does that run on? Is it a VM? Does it run on the actual bind servers? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the fact that Micetro is an overlay management tool. Meaning that it's very non-invasive. It's actually platform agnostic, where we can manage multiple platforms, not just bind servers. And it does require its own infrastructure. So it's a small footprint. You can run the Micetro suite virtually on a physical box if you prefer. You can also install it on shared boxes because the footprint is quite large. I'm sorry, quite small.
Okay.
It's small.
Okay.
However, it's flexible. So if you have a designated database team, and it does have a database backend that it installs with SQLite initially out of the box. But if you have a large active environment, we would recommend you updating to an MS SQL or Postgres database. And along with the database backend and the web, it can be run also virtually on the cloud, or all on one box, or you can separate them. It's up to you. We're very flexible on design. Okay. So what I'll say about that, like, you would install the Micetro suite on, however you wanted your design to look like. And then what you do is you connect to the servers that you're in, the services that you're going to manage. So here's where you would do that. And we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go too deep into it, but here's where you would do that. So this is, in our sandbox, we have the web running on the same box as the other components. Okay. So you get your software installed, and then you would go and connect to your servers here.
What are the OS requirements for the where you install the Micetro?
You can install on a Linux server or Windows. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right.
One thing you want to know about that, so you'll see here the server types. these are the services you're connecting to. The components are for Micetro Suite. There's like a central service. It runs as a service on Linux or Windows. There's the web. So you have to have an Apache or an IIS server, depending on your platform. And then you have the agents. For bind, you would need to install an agent on the DNS servers. That agent communicates through specific firewall ports. You have to open ports between them, and when you connect, it creates a preferences file on the server where it stores the keys, so that it's securely only talking to the instance of Micetro that you're connecting it to.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you also have logging. So you can enable logging on these agents. So if you have communication issues between when connecting, there's logging that you can turn on the agent itself and also on the central box.
Okay.
So this is how you would add and connect to your servers. You do specify what type of server it is. And these fields here are actually custom fields. There's you can create custom fields to collect metadata. So we have this ability on pretty much every view that you're seeing there. You connect to your server. I don't have a new server to connect to at the moment. So what I will show you here is the DNS servers. You'll see that we have multiple platforms, and we have 2 bind servers in this sandbox.
Okay.
I want to mention here that you see the status of the server. We intentionally take this server down to show that it acts as an early warning system, right? So if the server's turned off or out for maintenance, it will show the service down and make that visible to you in the portal.
Okay. Question on that. That was one of the ones I had listed. So that's great. Is there any alerting that comes out of that as well? Like, a lot of people have in their infrastructure have like additional alerting systems. Does Micetro have some of that built in as well?
Well, we have the state, right? We show the state of the servers.
Mm-hmm.
You're also going to see it, I like to say early indicator of issues, because we get a lot of calls where someone's trying to manage DNS and something's wrong, right? You get an error message. We get a lot of tickets saying there's an error message in Micetro, but what it actually is like there's a zone configuration issue.
Right.
And
Okay.
we do data checking on that. So that's, as far as the day-to-day management, it checks RFCs. It's going to do data checking against your real-time data that it's pulling off of the server. Okay. And it won't allow you, we do code to RFCs, so it won't allow you to make a lot of mistakes that would cause your conf files to have issues. So the tool will do that. As far as alerting, in the console, we have we're not a monitoring tool. So I would not dare to say that we do that. A lot of our customers will actually use the API to configure custom alerts and send them to their monitoring system.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
If they're using a different so we have this wonderful API that integrates, and our tool is API driven. So anything you can do in the front end, you can do in the API. And so we often do this as professional services. We help our customers to configure and send those alerts to monitoring, Splunk, collecting logs, whatever. But we are not a monitoring tool.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep. We do have this dashboard here, which shows issues, right? Mm-hmm. So it'll show you configuration issues, tell you which server it's on, and then you can actually go and drill into the configuration to see what's going on.
Hey, April.
Go ahead.
We do have a question in the Q&A. Jeffrey asked, do you have an appliance model that you get hardware and software, the Micetro solution, that is completely supported as like a single solution?
Yeah, okay. So we have, we do offer a virtual appliance. We have a caching appliance and a DNS appliance, and it's running bind on those appliances actually. So that's what we do. And you can purchase those and put them in with your existing infrastructure. Like say you need a caching server, a little caching server here, or a local DNS server for whatever reason. Yeah, you can put those in, and we do maintenance on those for you. They're a light appliance and can be added, or lots of our customers actually use them for their solution as well. But I will say that we are not an appliance. You know, that's not our main product, right? We do have it, but not our main bread and butter, let's say.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Sorry, Eddie, go ahead. Take it away.
Oh, no worries. Question, and April, I'm sorry if I'm just too excited and getting ahead of your demo, but so I put Micetro in, and I have just say there's something I need to do maintenance like on the Micetro server. Is there any impact to the existing like bind services that I'm using Micetro around, or how does that all work? And also with that, can I still make configuration changes manually on a bind server if I'm running Micetro?
Yeah, this is a great question. And one of the reasons that I love an overlay solution, we connect to the servers, but when you lose a server or a service, it doesn't impact your DNS, right? So if you were to lose Micetro, you would lose your ability to manage it through the Micetro tool, right? So you lose all this logging and convenience, but you don't lose service. You would never have a downtime of DNS by losing Micetro. And you can continue to make native changes directly on the servers. And when the server connects back to the agent, when they start communicating with each other, we store serial number information in the database, so it would see that there was a difference, and it would ask you which one do you want to use. So we do take little backups of the configs, just so we don't store DNS information in the database. We always use the information off of the server. So when you open a zone, it's pulling the data into the view. Every time you double click and open a zone, it's pulling real-time data. So when you reconnect, it would recognize that and ask you which data you want to use to resync. Never lose service.
Okay, that's great. That sort of leads me to another question. So can I control, like, kind of the reason I asked that, because I'm sort of like, you know, a command line person. That's just how my brain works, right? But some people like to see other things, but there's also like typically a lot of the organizations that I've ended up doing consulting for, there's this sort of requirement to separate, like some of the, you know, senior level engineers can make changes around certain zones. And then you have another sort of like junior level, entry level folks only have access to make changes to these zones, or you know, only zone data, but not named.conf data. Is that something that Micetro does? Yeah,
we actually offer very granular permissions through Micetro. So I know, you know, back in the day, we were when we were managing bind servers, we were relying on people not knowing what they could do by logging into the server and editing volume files directly, right? So it was kind of a really scary situation.
Right.
So with Micetro, when you connect to the server, you define your roles and groups and users in the tool, you add another layer of security here. And if you were to, you know, ideally you would be able to remove the native access from your servers for most people. And with this access, you know, we really recommend role-based access. But you'll see that we have multiple built-in roles. So what this does is these are kind of what we think people need. If you don't fit into one of these roles, you can create custom roles, and you can apply the permissions very granularly to the zones, to the servers at any level you want. You can even set permissions to view only, right? So even if you wanted them to just view one zone or one and not see, anything else, you can set those perms granularly per object. I'm going to call them an object.
Okay.
So you would, you have users and groups as well. You can also use LDAP to authentication. You can set that up, and it supports that. And then the ability to see the access rights here. So here's where you would set the roles. So I'm just looking at the administrator built-in role. So this user has like full access to do everything, right? And what we do is if you add a user or a group into this role, we're applying the permissions to these modules and objects. So we do this, based on the roles. If I view all, you'll see that this is not a good example because it has everything. Let me get into this one. Let's see it a little bit better. So you'll see this is a viewers only, and it's granting access to the modules here. And you'll see that you can, that it's doing this role based. So the perms are very granular, and the view changes for each person in the web for their access rights. So my web could look very different from yours. In addition to that, we offer a workflow module here. So what this workflow module is it allows you to set up an approver requester or requester approver workflow. And right now, this is what we have. It's a DNS based. So, and it literally it allows non-admins to submit DNS changes, record changes, and
Very
then
nice.
it would go into an approval queue. You can also use bulk. It applies to bulk. So it gives the user the ability to go in as an admin. It looks like they're an admin, but when they submit the request, it goes up to a shopping cart up here. We call this the shopping cart.
Okay.
And then you designate a group as the approver. So they can do a reject or an approve. And then also, the thing I like about this tool, that feature, is that you can schedule for future changes where, if you work cross geo and you have your support teams, say in the US, and somebody in China is making changes, it's a tough time zone. They can submit a change, right? If you would like me to show this to you. So you'll see that when I type the record name and just hit tab, it saw what zone I was in.
Okay.
You choose your record type, set an IP address. I'll just use this. We also do look at availability of the IPs there. Whoops, it's not a real one. So I'll say 66, but it does check the status of the IP. So
Okay,
that's the
that's great.
IPAM piece of it, right? We have a find next free IP. There's a lot of functionality and data checking that it does against IPAM as well.
Okay.
In this case, we're collecting ownership. This is a custom field, and it's one that a lot of people ask for. So we can automate that user account to populate this field if you want to start collecting data on who's owning a record. There's a difference between transaction logging and history logging it's on everything that ever happens in the tool. Like, I'll show this to you as well. But if you wanted to collect ownership data for maybe automation or record cleanup, right? So the use case for that is they get the person, the owner, may not be the submitter, and then you can use that data to clean up stale DNS down the road.
Okay.
So here's, I'm admin. So if I was a regular user, I would only see the add to request. So it adds it up here, and then you can keep adding. When I'm done doing my shopping cart, when I'm done shopping DNS records, you submit, there's the scheduled change. So if I scheduled this anytime in the future, like what I would do if I was an admin making a change off hours, I would set it to a far off distant time. And then once that goes in and gets approved by the administrator or the approver, at that point, me as the submitter owns that change. So I can always go back into the record, change the date on it. So that eliminates the need to have people on the call during the change at terrible hours. It's a great feature.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's
Yeah,
workflow.
Yeah, part of what you were just showing sort of leads me to my next question is, so like troubleshooting, right? There's been a change or something happened, there's a problem. I'm assuming that this sort of tracks like, not, you know, not to get into like who made the change, but like what changes were made. So you can sort of, that's one of the questions I always ask when there's a problem, like, well, what changed last? And if you had a tool that showed that, that's very handy.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great features for troubleshooting. So along with every object that you click on in this view, you will have this view history, right? So this is the transaction history. And from the moment you install Micetro and start making changes through Micetro, you're going to get a nice transaction log of what is going on. And this is at the zone level. You can do this at the record level as well. So this is from the web. And see, you have a view history. And you can see who did it at what time. If it's a particularly challenging problem, we have some, I will hop over to console here because we are moving these features into the web, but you can do like, you can also see suite logs and also get to server logs. You can get server info and log info. So this is nice. You can go a deeper dive here. We're going to be putting these capabilities into the web as well. But we can, because we're connected, we can pull information off those servers. My favorite one is my DNS record disappeared, right? So what I would do is if somebody said that, I would say about when did you start having problems, right?
Right.
And then I would do an object history and I would just search by, either date or a name or record, if they knew the record or zone, whatever, you just type in something. In fact, I'm just going to do nothing and show you 1,000 results. And then look how fast it was. And then you can just get a history of everything that happened. And then you can actually do a filter for something more granular. So it's always best to start broadly and simple. And then the quick filter and all of our filtering abilities in the tool uses like regex characters. So you can do very detailed searches on logs. And also going back to like if the change is made on the DNS server natively, if we're connected to that server, you will know that there's a change because it will say, see if I can find one here, it will say externally altered, meaning that the change knows what the change was. It'll show you what was changed. So if it was deleted by an automated process with the API or something, it would pick up the change. It would say externally altered, and you could see at least what time that change occurred and go track down the activities that were on the server by looking at the server logs.
Okay.
Lots you can do with that.
That's very helpful.
So
I think
we are coming to the end of our time here. We have a few minutes, but Eddie, I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you have, one last great question, we can do a quick Q&A then too. We do have a couple questions in the queue.
Yeah,
no, I think a lot of mine have already been covered. I would ask, but this is we probably don't have a lot of time for that, but like a lot of my experience is getting dropped into places that have like homegrown tools for all this. I'm sure you all run into that a lot. And most of the time, the problem is the persons who wrote that are no longer there. So no one wants to touch anything. So like, what's the process for transitioning out of a scenario like that to like a tool like Micetro? I realize that's a very open-ended question, but I assume you all run into this a lot.
Yeah. So I think of there's not just the like integrate. Are you talking about integration with homegrown tools or infrastructure, like migrating infrastructure from
integrating so homegrown tools that are already trying to do what Micetro is doing, right? There's like a custom written script that no one wants to touch because it'll break everything.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure you deal with this a lot.
Yeah, we do. And we also do a lot of, let me show you, I was going to show you our API here, because what I think we would do, sorry about that, we would take whatever code they had, and ideally you can get it into the, you can get the code, and I'm sorry, I'm thinking and talking at the same time.
Not a problem.
One sec. I want to show you our documentation, because it would be easy to take the code and start managing your infrastructure with Micetro, and then those homegrown tools can actually transition very nicely using the API. So if you have an end-to-end solution like cloud provisioning team or something, and they're provisioning servers, and then they want to do that last bit DNS update to Men&Mice, and somebody's created a whole tool, and they have this chunky web page that nobody knows how to. I think that's the use case you're giving me, right?
Yeah.
So what they could easily do, some people even like their tool. If they want to keep it, we can just transition that over to like using the API, that last step, to make the API change through the Men&Mice API. So if they even want to keep their front end, right, and just make that DNS change, they get the benefits of the logging and the history, and also and that would be a nice way to transition over. And what I would say to them is, let me see what your tool's doing, and let me show you how to do it here, right?
That's great.
That's great. Might not need it. You might not need it. But here's the API. This is installed when you install the tool. It's installed on your server, and you can see the API calls. You can try them out. You need to have access to be able to do this to the zones and servers.
Very nice.
But it's a really nice feature. We also love to assist at any level. You don't have to hire us for consulting. If you just want to do it yourself and get a few tidbits of help, we're always here to help. We don't care what level that's at.
Yeah. April's a master of making things self-service, and
I love
before you know it, your entire company will be a user on Micetro, which is fantastic, right?
InfoSec teams or the IT security teams really love the tool, because it gives them a level of visibility. And with the API, we've created a lot of custom workflow and tasks that do record cleanup, that enforce security rules. Like, you can code them into the tool with the API saying, I don't want to allow this type of record, to be created because it's going to trigger this vulnerability or whatever. So you can control that with the API and the submittal into the workflow. There's a lot you can do. I love it. It's very flexible. It's not invasive. And we are just possibility thinkers here. Like, if you want it, we love to take that challenge on and try to figure out how to do it. It's fun stuff. We're nerds.
Excellent.
So we do have a couple questions in the queue, and I'll give you both a chance to say your final words. But before we do that, we have a question asking, how would you make large changes, like more than 1,000 records, and how would you roll back that change if you didn't like it?
Okay, that's a great question. So we do have a bulk import here. You can bulk import DNS, IPAM, IP addresses too, and that's metadata on any of those things as well. So this is a nice little, you basically just need a template. You can take a CSV and just put it into the correct format, and we're giving you an example here. And you just literally drag it over. You know, I have customers doing up to like 8,000 DNS changes at one time. As far as rollback, we are working on a rollback feature that would do like a one-click rollback. That's coming very soon in our tool. I'll give you a cool scenario where somebody actually went in with a homegrown and did a DEL star dot zone, and they deleted like 800,000 DNS records. Yeah, I was on call.
Fun.
And so I actually used the history log, the view history on the zone. It listed every single record that got deleted. And instead of me trying to get a hold of the, you know, the backup of the zone, I just parsed out the DNS data. I literally copied it, pasted it into Excel, did a quick cleanup of 800,000 records, and I did a paste.
Nice.
And then I just sat there and went, oh, like I was on the phone, you know, and I'm like, you should see this in, you know, Australia now, like check that server. It made it up to that server. So yes.
Very nice.
That's how I would do it, but we will have a one-click button for that. It's on our roadmap.
Okay.
Awesome. And one last question, and this was a few minutes ago, so apologies. I don't know if we were talking about something specific, but would it work as a self-cache, and does it support any cast?
I think maybe he was referring to the appliance version.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, and it does support any cast.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, that's all the questions we have in our queue. Eddie, April, any final closing statements?
There's a lot that you didn't see. So
we can do a part two.
If you want more, just give us a call. I'd be happy to show you whatever you want to see. And it was a pleasure meeting you, Eddie.
Yeah, nice meeting you, April. The only thing I would say is like it went really fast. So
yeah, it sure did.
I'd be happy to do a part two. I'm sure there's a lot we didn't get to, but thank you. This was very. I learned a lot.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. And feel free to reach out with questions anytime. I did pop some Twitter handles up there, but reach out to us anyway through our various websites and all of that. Thanks again to April and Eddie. Fantastic job. And I think we definitely need a part two, maybe a part three, maybe an ongoing series. We'll see what happens. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and have a fantastic Thursday.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.